Hello, and welcome to the Empowerography Podcast. This is a platform created for women's voices to be heard and a place to share their stories, journeys, and successes with the world for the purpose of helping other women who might be on similar journeys. We are empowering women one episode at a time. I'm your host, Brad Walsh, so kick back, grab one of your favorite beverages, and enjoy the stories. If you're looking for jewelry that makes an impact on your self-care routine and your style, Empowerography would like to offer you a discount code to one of our exclusive partners, Quartz and Canary Jewelry and Wellness Company. Use code EMPOWER15 to receive 15% off upon checkout at www.quartzandcanary.com. Quartz and Canary is truly the place where spirituality meets style. Hello there, Brad Walsh here, your host of the Empowerography Podcast. Today, my guest is Sonia Jackson. She is an actress, writer, producer, and the founder and CEO of Visions of Possibilities. How are you doing this morning, Sonia?
I'm great. Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to be here with me and chat and share a little bit about your story and your journey. I appreciate you taking the time.
Absolutely.
So let's jump right in. As mentioned, you're an actor, a director. You're also a philanthropist. You are a writer. That is a hell of a lot of hats you're wearing. How do you find the time, and what is the key for you to remaining organized on top of things, and how do you prioritize?
Well, it's an interesting thing to do. I've always been organized, and I've always had a particular plan to think. Right now, because of the size of this particular project, it has gotten bigger. And it's gotten more interesting in terms of trying to manage things. So I find myself being open to allowing other people to assist me. You know, sometimes we get this whole thing about how are we going to let people remind us that something needs to be done. I'm right out there up front. Okay, if I say I'm going to give you something, that's my intention to do that. If you haven't gotten it by the end of the day or the first thing the next morning, then you send me a note that says, please send me this item because...
Anya, where is this? You said you'd send it to me.
Yeah, somewhere along the line, it's gotten moved. But there are so many working parts to... The bigger the project, the more working parts there are to it. And so I find that I need to give myself a break, because what will happen often is I'll be working on this particular email and I need to reference something else. I need to reference another email. So I'll open my email in another window and search for that thing. And when I search for that thing, something else will pop up. And then you know what happens? Your mind goes off to that. And then your mind goes off to another one. So I have to, I literally write myself notes and put them in front of me. This is what you're working on for the next half hour. Nothing else.
I love it.
You know, so I find my own little tricks to help me.
Okay. How long have you been an actress, and what inspired you to step into that world? I mean, from all I've heard, it's a very fierce dog-eat-dog competitive world.
You know, I find that we see things that we think we're going to see.
Okay.
So at the beginning of my career, that's kind of how I saw things. And I think a lot of it came from the people I was around were running into that. And maybe that's what they saw all the time.
Okay.
I don't really see that as much myself anymore. And maybe it's the people that I attract. First off, I didn't become an actor. I wasn't well, if you ask my brother and if my parents were around, you ask them, they'd probably tell you I was an actor.
Right.
And my friends in college said, you've always been an actor. When I announced that I was becoming an actor, they said, you've always been one. You know?
Right.
So sometimes other people see it before you do.
Yeah.
But I was a dancer in school and as a kid, because for a physical reason, it was to help strengthen my body. And I loved performing. I loved doing that. And I danced all through high school and through college. And while in college, I started acting. But then I got out of college and I went and got, quote unquote, a legitimate job, because I didn't have anybody in my family who had been in that kind of industry. So I didn't actually really know anything about it and how to do it. So I was in my 30s before I decided to be in it. And I was actually at a business group Actually, it was an entertainment group, but they had a business segment to it.
Okay.
And everyone was always talking about acting or producing or writing and these shows they were doing and all this work. And we sat down in the business group one day and I looked at everybody's face. There was about 10 of us and we were all looking a little downtrodden. I said, does anybody else feel badly that we're not actors? And somewhere along that line in the next few months, I shifted gears. And I didn't have anything to put on my resume except a play that I had written when I was 7, which I figured probably wasn't going to be apropos at the moment. So I started doing stand-up.
Okay.
And then went into acting. And the first professional job I got, because I was in business in those days, you could join AFTRA. So I went on and joined AFTRA because I wanted to tell the universe I was serious.
Yes.
And after I joined AFTRA, then my agent started sending me out on a variety of things. And I went out on this McDonald's commercial.
Okay.
And one part of the commercial was all about community. One of the part of the commercial were these 3 girls singing like the Supremes.
Okay.
And so I was in this group of these with
young girls, the
young girls at the time, and both sides of me. And we were supposed to be the Supremes, and we were just singing and bobbing away and just having a great time. And all of a sudden, I looked over at this one because I'm thinking, we want to connect. And she didn't look at me, and I looked over at the other one over on the other side, and she didn't want to look at me. They're all up in camera singing and doing their thing. And both of them stepped on my feet in spike high heels. And it wasn't like I thought they did it on purpose or anything, but there was a moment of, whoa.
Yeah.
And I don't know how that read on the commercial or not, but I did get a call back on that commercial. And they set me up with this short, round woman. And so I was no longer one of the Supremes. In fact, I think the Supremes left. They weren't a part of the segment at all. And I was paired with this short, round woman. And I'm 5'11", and I am thin. I have filled out very well by comparison to how thin I was as a girl. And so she and I had this great connection. And we just played because they said we were looking out the window at the community and we were just having a good time. And look over there. And then we were just having a great time. And so that was the first, I got Taft-Hartley on that show, on that commercial. And that was the first time I became, quote unquote, the professional actor that I wanted to be.
Now, I mean, you always hear these stories of these people coming from the Midwest to LA to pursue their dreams as actors, and they end up getting jobs waiting tables. And that's what I was more referring to. You hear about all of this really hard luck, and it's a very hard world to break into. So is there a lot of that around? Or is it more mindset for people?
I think the reason, and you actually picked up on that because I paused because I want to say it's more mindset. That when we are connected to what it is that we want to do, and when we are that force behind it, what happens is, my belief is that whatever we're asking for, we can have. Whatever we're asking for, we can get. That the universe will create it for us, and it'll move heaven and earth to get it to us. And it's whether or not we've accepted it. It's whether or not we've actually opened ourselves to allow it to kind of flow.
To receive it, yeah.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it is based on how we feel.
Right.
Because if we feel that, that happened to me, I can't get that, this is a problem. The more, have you ever noticed that whatever your thoughts are, you get more of those kinds of thoughts? Yes,
absolutely.
And when something wonderful happens and you start to have those kinds of thoughts, more wonderful
of that
things
comes,
happen as well.
For sure.
So we have to keep track of where we are. And I think life sometimes is like Christmas. We know Christmas is coming. Now, right now, it's March. We're not really thinking about Christmas. But if we did, it would be, Christmas is going to be in December. And, that's a time when I almost always get what I want. I get what I want. When November starts to get closer, it's like Thanksgiving. And then Thanksgiving is just a treat to remind us about all the different kinds of foods that are going to come up at Christmas. And then we start Christmas, and then people are going to get Christmas trees, and then people put lights up, and it's like, oh, it's so festive, it's so fun. And we're having more and more thoughts, and then presents under the tree. And we know that probably under the tree is something that we want because
Right.
we've asked for something. So we're anticipating it. We're spending days just being in the joy of knowing that we're going to unwrap something that we want. And I think often life is kind of like that. It wants us to be excited and wants us to be happy about what we're about to have, because it's, you know, what they say is it's always about the journey. It's about the
For
journey.
sure. 100%. Now, you also work in theater. How is that transition for you when you do work in film and TV and then move into being on stage doing plays? How is that transition for you? Because obviously they're two different worlds.
They are two different worlds, because in film and television, well, and they have different gratification levels, you know.
Yeah.
Film and television, unless it's a sitcom, it's a delayed gratification.
Right.
Film and television, because you work the part, you have the fun, you do everything you're supposed to do, then they put it together and then they put it out there, and then you see how people like it.
Yeah.
On stage, you know how people like it. Hopefully you're getting some kind of reaction.
Yeah.
From the audience.
Yeah.
I love stage because you get to feed off the audience. I also love film and television because you get to really hone what you're doing, and you hone it on stage as well. But if you're, you know, when you're working with a director and you're doing a film, let's say they've given you a particular direction that they want that to go, you do that. And then maybe you ask them, well, what if we do this? What if we try it this way? It'll give a different flavor to it. It'll give you a different understanding. And maybe the reaction to the other person will come up differently. And so you get to play with it, and then the editor gets a chance to see, and the director gets a chance to see how best is the story being told if we play with that as a possibility, you know. Mm-hmm. And on stage, you get to play, you get to go through the entire piece and take the audience on a ride, and then see the culmination of it at the end. The culmination on film and television comes later. And you never know about stage too, because I did a play years ago called Absurd Person Singular. And Absurd Person Singular is a British play, and it takes place in 3 households. There are 6 characters. It takes place in 3 households at Christmas, and sometimes it gets crazier and crazier. It's a comedy, and you know, the British sometimes have a little bit sense of humor.
Yeah.
And so we were doing that play, and it was very quiet. It was a Sunday afternoon. It was very quiet, and people normally would be laughing. And at intermission, it had 2 intermissions, and at intermissions, we were all as actors backstage going, wonder what was going on. So we said, well, maybe they weren't getting it. Okay, let's rev this up a little bit.
Yeah.
So we revved it up, and the second act is really hysterical because this person is trying to kill herself, and nobody's getting it. You know, so it's a hysterical piece, and nobody laughed. And I thought, okay. So at intermission, because there's 2 intermissions, second intermission, we're going, oh my gosh, what happened? So we revved it up again. And people didn't laugh in the third act. And so we took our bows and we went backstage to get changed and go home. And at the time, my stepmother came backstage, and she was bouncing, and she was like, oh, that was so much fun. And I said, but nobody laughed. She goes, oh no, we had to be quiet so we could hear. What we didn't figure out was that matinee were senior citizens at the time.
Right.
I understand that now. But at the time, they weren't making a lot of noise because they wanted to make sure they could hear, because in those days, you know, they didn't always get their hearing aids or whatever.
Yeah.
And so here we were thinking, you know, that
it wasn't being received well.
Yeah. And so, you know, the reaction was a completely different thing that we thought.
So did you start out then in this world on stage doing plays first, or film and television, and then stage came after?
I started on stage because I had nothing to put on my resume. And I, you know, went out on film and television auditions and commercials, but I didn't understand it as well. And I was still honing what my skills were. And I am a character. I admit it.
You
I am
own
a
it.
character. I love being a character. And so I love, pratfalls and all sorts of physical comedy and things like that. And so I did more stage because I could do that. I would go and audition and I had no qualms about anything. So I would play. I remember when I auditioned for that play I was just telling you about, Absurd Person Singular, the director said to me, "We knew that you were the one when you walked off the stage and turned off the imaginary light." Because I played growing up. I had imaginary friends and I had imaginary all sorts of things, and I would play, because I spent a lot of time by myself sometimes because my mom was sick, but I would just play in my mind and stuff. So I love theater because we do get to do that a lot more sometimes, it seems.
Okay. What lights you up or inspires you the most about being an actor?
Playing different characters. Being able to give someone a different idea, a different viewpoint, being able to show a different side, because we have a set of beliefs or something, and that doesn't necessarily mean that they're true. We may have a particular idea about who you are without knowing you. And it may be based on some belief system, like you wear glasses. I wore glasses. They put me in glasses at 7. All sorts of things happened to me when I was 7. But someone may have a belief system about people who wear glasses. Yeah. And so then we can give a portrayal of a particular character in a particular way and maybe switch it up so that someone has an opportunity to think differently about that, what they've seen and what they've portrayed. So I love that about being an actor. I love playing dress up.
So you're also a producer. What is your favorite part about being a producer for the stage?
Oh, you get to play in all the arenas when you're a producer, especially when you're producing your own projects. And if it's a small project, then you definitely, sometimes you're out there building furniture or painting sets. And sometimes you're interviewing someone. So as a producer, you get an opportunity to see the different aspects of what's happening and how people can make them happen. And you get to make suggestions and use your imagination in that area. It's not cut and dry about this is how it happens. This is what you do next. Sometimes, something happens and you have to pirouette and shift. Yeah. So I like being able to look at the big picture and see how we can make all the parts move in that direction.
So out of the two roles, then acting and producing, which do you prefer and why?
Oh, acting always. Acting is fun. Acting, you get to make stuff up. You get to pretend that
play make-believe.
Yeah. That's what they taught us in kindergarten.
Yeah.
Pretend that you're looking at this and let's march together. Okay. And we can all do this together, or we can do that and we can play and be, what does a cat say? What does a mouse say? Yeah. How do you do that, little girl? When we were kids, it's just nothing about, it's just being a grown-up kid.
There you go. Yeah. Now, what were you doing for a living before you got into acting?
Oh, okay. So when I was in college, I got my degree in sociology, which is the study of society and people and interactions and all of that. And I eventually went into human resources, which is actually a good place to be for an actor. Okay. To look at people and watch people and interview people. And then I got enough material for comedy. So, but I worked in aerospace. I worked in banking. I worked for a company that was called, at the time, Transaction Technology. They did the first ATM machines for Citicorp back in the day. I worked in aerospace for companies that did inertial navigational systems for missiles and things like that.
Oh.
I worked in banking. I worked in, so I was always in recruitment.
Okay. Dealing with people.
Yes.
Yeah.
And sometimes, in the last company, I also worked with information systems and technology.
Okay.
And so because I was in human resources and personnel and dealing with compensation and benefits and employee relations and all of those kinds of things, it was an opportunity to listen and see how people interact as well. So then you know, because you have those situations where people are dating,
yeah,
and then they're not dating, but they're still working together, real closely. And, you know, I would get people in my office, not the daters, I would get the people who worked with them in my office going, can you do something about these people? Or situations, even in my own experience, I had an assistant who was she was a wonderful young lady. And I was teaching her how to become a recruiter. I was teaching her for advancement because I believe that's what we all should be doing.
Yeah.
Everybody we're working with. And she came up to me and she said she wanted to go on vacation. And she was really smart. She didn't go to college, but she didn't need to. She learned quickly. And my first thought when she said, I'm going to go on vacation was, man, she's going to be gone for 2 weeks. What am I going to do? I was like, oh, wow. And I had this moment and I didn't even think about her asking me about it. So it had to be days later that she was sitting at her desk and she was typing away. But I was looking at her and she was crying, tears running down her face. I said, what's wrong? She goes, nothing. And I said, come in my office. So she came in my office. I sat her down. I said, so what's wrong? She goes, well, I wanted to go on vacation. And she had plans and she had to talk to somebody else. She had to, they had to coordinate these stuff. Yeah. I said, of course you can go on vacation. I didn't tell you could. She said, no. I said, oh. I said, well, and then I told her what happened. I had thought about it. And then later on, I told her what happened. I said, I don't want you going on vacation. I don't want you going on vacation because that means you're not working. And that means I have to rely on completely myself, because she had become such a really good assistant, Yeah. And sometimes I think we do that in our work. We forget, we're so wrapped up in, how this is going to affect us, that we forget that the other person needs help or needs information or just needs comfort in that moment.
Yeah, very true.
I said, of course you can go on vacation. So she was happy after that. But I worked in that industry and I enjoyed that as well until I got to places where people weren't necessarily allowing me to do the work that I felt I needed to do.
Now, you've been involved in some pretty big and well-known projects. Can you share a bit about some of the ones you've been involved in and what has been one of your favorites? I know you've been on some pretty well-known TV shows and films and stuff. So what has been one of your favorites to work on?
They all are favorites for one reason or another, but I have to say it would probably be Speed. Speed was fun. Speed was outrageous too.
Was it?
And sometimes it was hard because we filmed it from, I think it was July through September, and it was a particularly hot summer. Mm-hmm. And I was on the bus, and so we had like 9 weeks on the bus.
Oh, wow.
Like and most of the bus work was on the freeway, and it was on the 105 freeway that wasn't open at the time so that we could use it. And so there was nothing but concrete and sun.
Oh, yeah. I can imagine.
It was hot, but we had such a good time because we had each other to play with. In my book, I have pictures of some, and there weren't cell phones. I guess there were, but there weren't cell phones a lot around with the rest of us. Everybody didn't have a cell phone.
Yeah, not like it is now.
Yeah, and I have pictures. I have photographs of us on the bus, of the different buses and the body parts when we were supposed to get of the people who got blown up with their laying down next to their dummy parts, and pictures of the cast and crew doing just fun stuff. And like I have a picture of Sandra Bullock doing a walkover with Maggie, who is the first AD or second AD, doing a walkover too. The two of them doing walkovers on the tarmac at LAX. And just a lot of fun. We had just a lot of fun doing that show. And I had a scene that I did on Jurassic Park 3, and that was fun. Some things are just small parts or not necessarily small parts because they're integral to the story, but they're an opportunity to play with a particular character or not. And so I love doing certain things like that. And sometimes I have done things that were simply, I got hired without having to audition or anything because they knew I would know what I was supposed to be doing.
Right.
So at one point in time on one show, I won't tell you which one, but at one point in time, I was just there to open the door.
Okay.
So that the main characters can come through without having to do anything. But they wanted somebody who was going to play a particular character who also opened the door.
Right.
So, things like that. The director looked at me and said, "Do you know why you're here?" I said, "Yeah, I'm here to open the door." And he said, "Okay."
We're good to go. So on the opposite end of that, then, what has been one of your least favorite experiences on set, and why, and how did you deal with that experience?
Oh, well, I'm pretty joyful for the most part. It's so much more fun to be happy.
Yes. It takes less energy.
Takes less energy. And it's energy that's just so much more fun. I'd gotten a commercial. I don't remember what it was for, but I was a receptionist. It was very stylized, and I was a receptionist. And I was to answer the phone by pushing the button and move in. Hello? 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 This is John? Yeah, it's like that. And so I just had a desk, and I wasn't walking into the scene. I wasn't doing anything but sitting at this desk. So the people were around me, and I'm not just going to sit there and not talk to people. So I was talking to the crew, and because I was the only cast member. And this was, I found out later, was a particularly difficult director, or his life must have been difficult. So he made things difficult for people around him. At least that was the appearance, I'll say. And so I was laughing and talking, and I don't remember exactly what I did, but he came in and yelled at me. Not just like yelled at me. He it would have been blowing my hair back. Kind of thing. And the entire set went quiet.
Of course.
And I don't have any reason or any understanding why it came at me. Maybe I was just talent, or maybe I don't know why, but it came at me. And it was, that is not your job. You're not supposed to be doing that. Who do you think you are? Blah, blah, blah. It was this tirade that just kind of went whoosh, and like a hurricane that hit me. And I was standing there looking at him, and the room was silent, like, what's going to happen? And I just kind of looked at him, but because I was okay and I wasn't taking anything personally, I just looked at him and went, "I'm sorry that happened, and I'll make sure that it doesn't happen again. What would you like me to do now?" And I just and it kind of diffused the whole thing, and the room went
like a big sigh of relief.
Because I'm sure if he's done that before, that somebody ran off the stage crying, or got pissed off and got angry or whatever. But for me, it was, in that moment anyway, I was like, "Oh, okay,
no problem.
Sorry. What do you want me to do?"
Yeah. Okay. Now, you say that through storytelling, you like to challenge the antiquated assumptions about women with unique observations, and that you like to entertain and inspire women to recognize their own beauty, power, and strength. Why is this so personally important to you?
Well, I think it's important to all of us. And it's important to me because I was in that position at some point in time in my life, not feeling inspired, not feeling like I could get somewhere, believing in what somebody else's idea of me was. And where we should be for ourselves is standing in our own power, whoever we are, whatever we're doing, standing in our own power, and know that we have our own power, which is so important. So I like to, in my show, Conversations About the Girls, it's a play about women's breasts. And there's just so many different things about women, our bodies, we get a significant body part after it's factory installed, but it doesn't develop for, 12, 13 years.
Right.
Sometimes 10, sometimes 15. As one of my assistants says, I'm still waiting for mine to develop. but we get a body part later on in years. And later on in years, when everybody starts to notice it. So we have things that people talk about who we are and what we do and how we are. And so in my show, Conversations About the Girls, I present a variety of different ways that it shows up for us as women. And then we can look at it and remind ourselves, yeah, that's not so bad. Or, hey, we walk through this kind of a life. I have power. Yeah. I have the ability to overcome. Or we have other women who can watch someone else's walk and go, oh, that's what my friend walked through. Now I understand it better. Or, it's not about cancer itself. The play about the girls is about women's breasts, but it's about all the things that happen to women's bodies and our breasts and what it is like walking through life with them or without them. And so in the play, I had a cast one year and the cast always, they invite their friends and family. And one of the cast members invited her circle of friends, and there were 7 or 8 of them. And one of them, for whatever reason, couldn't come. And that one was diagnosed later with breast cancer. And I got a note back from one of the other women who, in the circle of friends who had seen the show, and said that because she had seen the show, she had a better understanding of what her friend was going to walk through and was able to just be her friend. And so those are the kinds of things. Sometimes we don't have any information about what someone else is going through. Yeah. We don't know how to do something, or we don't know how to just continue to see them or be ourselves around them.
Yes.
And so I like to do that with my shows.
I want to speak a little bit about your philanthropic work. You're the founder, as mentioned, of Visions of Possibilities. Can you tell us a little bit about the organization and how long ago you founded it?
Well, it got founded as a nonprofit in 2019, but I have been using Visions of Possibilities for probably as a doing business as or something along that line. I had a ministry at one point in time, and it was Visions of Possibilities for 15, 20 years, right. Something along that line, at least 15. At one point in time, I had a company that I called Progress Production. And it's always about there is a possibility in our lives that we could see, that we could take a look at. And there's always going to be a vision that we can see about that possibility. And if we expand on that in our minds, we can see more and more. And so I wanted to create something that spoke to that. So I do my shows under Visions of Possibilities. I have a show called Mamaisms, and it's about how mothers and children interact, how we as mothers or mother figures affect the lives around us. And so I like to bring those out and show people what is a possibility and maybe how could they see it a little differently? How could we shift it so that it's not exactly operating that same way? But in Mamaisms, I was on the island of Catalina one day. We were having lunch with my husband, and I was watching another table, had two little children, and the little girl was probably about 6. And her dad and her mom were there. And the dad was on the phone. He was on his cell phone. And she was just chattering away. She was having this whole conversation with him about whatever. I have no idea. But she was animated. She was happy. She's having this conversation. And she asked him a question. I could see it in her. She tapped him and she asked him a question. And he didn't connect. He did not connect. He didn't look over at her. He was so deep in his phone. And then she completely shut down. She stopped. She just kind of sat back and she ate her food, and she was a nice little girl still, but there was a light that was gone. And that particular spark is not going to come back. She'll still be sparkly and she'll do that. But if he continues to do that kind of thing over and over and over again, she's going to have developed some kind of a meaning behind it. So I will eventually, when I do momisms again, may do some part of that story in my show and give the audience an idea of how could that have been done differently. Because clearly, if you're on the island of Catalina, you're there just to have a good time and to walk around. And there's only really so much you can do on that island, but he could have taken an hour out of his day to truly have lunch with his family. Yeah. And he didn't. So I like to challenge those kinds of things. What do we do? What do we see? And how can we make changes to it?
What is the most inspiring part of the work you do with Visions of Possibilities?
Most inspiring for me, I would say it's making a connection or finding the connection with audiences after they've seen a show or after they've gotten an understanding. I was in Ventura doing momisms at one time, and there was a daughter, a mother, and a grandmother who had all come to see the show. Mm-hmm. And it was such a wonderful thing to listen to them talk about how they perceived the show and from the different generations.
3 generations, yeah.
Yeah. And how, the mother had a comment that directly connected to one of the stories in the show, which connects to my other show, because she was talking about the school where her daughter goes. She's a teenager, and her school where her daughter goes, they have a requirement that the girls wear bras. And it's like, excuse me, they what? Wow. She goes, they have a requirement that the girls wear bras. And her daughter didn't want to wear a bra. And her daughter doesn't wear a bra. And so her mother, in support of her daughter, went up to the school and said, you can't tell my daughter what she can and cannot wear if I'm giving her approval that she can do this.
Absolutely.
And so it was such a wonderful thing to hear that this mother was standing up for her child. And that's also evident in how that child is going to grow up.
Yes.
And be self-sufficient and be able to stand in her own power.
That's right.
And that's teaching her that. So I do the shows. In Conversations About the Girls, I have a couple of scenes where I talk about buying a bra or getting breasts or developing and how that happens to us and the different things that happen. Some are funny, some of them aren't. And one of the women, I still remember this from when I first did the show back in 2005, my friend after the show said, I had completely forgotten about that part of development, and I'm going to change how I tell my daughter about it. And that's, what else can you ask for? Yeah. That to affect somebody's life.
Right. It resonates.
Their child, to have that child grow up with feeling more empowered.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think your unique skill set is that's helped you become successful?
Oh, my unique skill set. I would probably say that I have a different way of looking at life sometimes. I'll look at it upside down and backwards or, and I have a different skill set in the sense like I don't have children, but I have a childlike mind. I have a way of looking at things differently. And I've taught a lot differently. I've looked at life from a place of the spiritual side instead of just cut and dry life. This is how we should
Black
operate.
and white. Yeah.
So I kind of look at things differently, I think.
How do you define success? What does that word mean to you?
Success could mean a lot of things. And success for me, it just means that we have accomplished a particular level of something. Sometimes the success, and we can have a variety of reasons why we want success, because to be successful, you have children and you want to be a successful parent.
Yes.
And being a successful parent has nothing to do with money.
No.
But in business, we want to be successful too, because we want to earn a compensation or have funds come in a way that we can support ourselves and support our endeavors. We also have success as community. Are citizens being able to get what they need, and are we able to live the lives that we want to live? So success has so many different meanings, and depending on the area and depending on what area we're talking about, it has different meanings for me too. So I think of life as success is if one of the biggest things is to be happy for me.
Yeah.
And there's nothing more important than how we feel, because how we feel will tell us where we are in life. And we can control our feelings. We don't sometimes want to believe it.
Yeah.
We want to believe that somebody over there made me feel this way, and so it's their fault. But someone over there can do whatever they do, and you see it all the time. It affects this person this way. It affects that person that way.
That's right.
So how come this one isn't unhappy and this one is? And so I'd rather walk through life happy than sad or
absolutely
in anxiety and stressed out.
Yeah, for sure.
And so when I find myself in those categories, I'm going, oh, I'm not being successful in the moment because I'm feeling poorly about something. How can I make that shift? And then in making that shift, anything and everything that I'm working on will be more empowered as well.
What would you say is one of the most important things you've learned in your life? And what was your life like before learning it? And what was your life like after learning it?
Well, gosh, there's been a number of important things. What comes to mind is learning that you can be who you are and what you need, and not, let me just give an example. When I became an actor, I was so ready, and I just knew people were going to be beating down my door, and I was surprised when they weren't. What's up with that? So I had to go get work because I had left my job to really pursue this, to really jump in. So I had to go get work, and I went to an audition for Kaiser Permanente, had a dental program, and they hired actors to be these characters to go out to schools and give the students this little presentation on dental hygiene. And I am a master improv person. I'm a master storyteller as well. And I went to that audition and I had so much fun and I just nailed it. I just knew because they had 6 positions. I knew I was going to get one of them.
Right.
I knew that. And then I didn't. And so because I didn't, I had to still look for work, and I was in more of a struggle. And jump ahead 5-10 years, I was still in a struggle because what that particular incident did to me, or I took it as, was that I didn't know. I wasn't a good judge of who I was because I knew I had done well. I thought I had. And to me, if you do something well, then people are going to want to put you in that position. And they didn't. So then maybe I was wrong. So everything got colored because of that situation. Jump ahead, I was at a party 10 years later, 8 years later, something like that. And I don't even remember what party it was or why I was there, because I was walking around in the room and I thought, I should just go home. Why did I come to this party? And I saw a young lady there, and she said to me, "Oh, hi, I know you. You did this audition, blah, blah." She ran down the audition for me. And I said, "Oh, yeah." She said, "You were really good." And I said, "Yeah, I was so good they didn't hire me." And she said, "Yes." And I went, "What?" And she goes, "The director said you were so good that you were probably going to be doing films in 6 months, and he didn't want to hire you, train you, and have you leave. So that was not my perception of the incident.
Yeah.
But it was her perception of the incident because that's what he told her. And I took a hit because I changed my belief in myself. I took a hit because of that. And so what happened over the next 10 years after doing the audition was a downward spiral. And what happened after the 10 years after that was me upward spiraling back into, what is the truth of who I am? What is this understanding? And how could I have let an outside source tell me who I am? And so that's been the biggest lesson. And I'm still learning that lesson because sometimes, it gets in the way. The human race will affect us in a particular way, and we'll go off and have this thought or conversation, and we'll go, oh, no. Then we have to come back to ourselves and go, no, that's not
like ourselves. Yeah, absolutely. Wow, that's crazy. It just shows how we can get in our own heads and have it affect us, right?
Mm-hmm.
What does the word empowerment mean to you?
Empowerment is, I looked it up once, and the definition said something about having strength and finding your strength and courage and confidence and being able to stand that and being able to accept your life. And that, I think, is one of the keys, because if we feel empowered, we feel strong in who we are. We feel our own capabilities. We feel an understanding of that which we can do, regardless of the evidence, because evidence doesn't necessarily mean anything. Evidence is just what happened or maybe what didn't happen. Somebody, like for me, I didn't get that job, and there's that quote unquote lack of evidence that I was going to be able to do this or that, And part of it for that situation was he didn't understand who I was too, because I generally don't leave anybody in a lurch. But empowerment is something that I want to be able to do for myself and to do for others. So I don't want my life to be just about me. It's about who I am and how I am with others too. So I currently, with my project Breastival, that's creating conversations about the girls, I have a few interns working on the project, and they're fabulous. I have some fabulous interns, and they're doing some great things. And one of the things that my intention is to empower these young women to know that that's exactly who they are. They are doing great things. They have great ideas. They have great minds that are going to create things, and that don't ever stray from that path. Sometimes we as adults, quote unquote, adults, tell our youth that the way I want it done or the way I'm seen is the way it should be done. Yeah. Or we think that their only capabilities is to stuff some envelopes at that stage or something, and that they don't have a contribution, and they have tremendous contributions to give. So I want to be able to empower others to remain confident in who they are and stand strong in that.
Okay, we're going to jump into a little rapid fire section. So the next grouping of questions just be 2, 3, 4 word answer type thing. Okay.
Yeah.
What was your very first job?
Ooh, babysitting at my church during service.
What was your dream job as a child?
I don't know if I had one, but maybe to be a dancer if I was going to.
If you came with a warning label, what would yours say?
A warning label. Character ahead. Anything can happen.
If you had a theme song that played every time you walked into a room, what song would that be?
Do, 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 do.
The Jeopardy theme.
Because you need time to figure out what's going to happen.
Love it. If you could teach the world one thing, what would that be?
To love everybody. Love.
What's one thing you want but cannot buy with money?
Ooh. World peace.
If you could change one thing about the world, what would you change?
Understanding.
How would you describe yourself in one word?
One word? Hmm. Because can come with a question mark.
Yeah.
Can come with a statement. Can be
Yes. All right.
Yeah. That's good.
That concludes our rapid fire section. Now back to our regularly scheduled program. What is one thing you wish you had known when you started your career that you know now?
That would be to learn not to be dissuaded from who I know myself to be. And that would be to, in any situation, in any circumstance, whether it is on an audition or on the set or just talking to somebody, to always know who I am and remember that.
If you were writing your autobiography, what would the title be?
The title. There she was.
All right. What is an unexpected blessing or occurrence in your life that you're grateful for?
Well, I don't know if it was unexpected. At some points it was unexpected. I got married late in life. So, and my husband is a really supportive person. And he just is a sweetheart. He's a gem. And so I didn't meet him until I was in my 60s. And we got married. And his first thing was, "Oh no, just work on your career. Just keep doing those your creativity and stuff." And so that's been a real blessing to have someone who supports what you do and we support each other. He's a musician. He works right now in the world, but he writes some wonderful music and meditation music. He's a guitarist and he produces his own albums and things. And so he does really wonderful work, and I support him with that, but he also supports me in getting done what I need to get done and doing the shows that I'm doing as well.
Having our support systems is key. You need that. I mean, it's so important. And there are a lot of people that don't have it.
Exactly. And sometimes the problem is that we don't seek it out, because I have it in him now. But whenever I've done my shows, I always seek out additional help, whether it's from somebody maybe in my cast or it's someone who I look for it.
Yeah.
Look around and see who's looking at my stuff. And then I'll ask, "Can you help me do this? Can you help me do that?" Yeah.
Well, if you don't ask, the answer is always going to be no.
Exactly.
That's it's hard for people to ask for help though, because I think our pride gets in the way, our ego gets in the way, and we're also scared of rejection.
And sometimes we've been programmed not to.
Yes.
We've been programmed. Our kids are doing much better now, but when we went to school, you were supposed to do all the work yourself. You do all your work yourself. And that's not helpful. Yes, and I understand you want the child to learn how to do something. You don't want them to be copying off of somebody else's paper and not know how to do it. But
you don't want them to be dependent either.
Yes, you want them to be able to figure out how to go find the help. And we have that now. So nobody goes to Google and says, "Really, I don't want to bother you, but I need some information.
Yeah.
And if you don't mind, would you help me out and tell me what this means?" Well, but if we need some help on something, we go to Google. Why can't we do that with each other?
Exactly. I agree.
Somebody
100%.
over there knows something that I need to know. Ask.
More often than not, I find that people are very willing to help out. You just have to ask. People aren't mind readers. They don't know that you need the help. So ask. The worst thing that can happen is the person says no. And that's it. Yeah. And so, okay, they say no. Move on to the next person. Find someone else. But also, I think we have to remember that when someone says no, it's not a permanent no. It could just mean, no, it's not right now. This isn't the right time for it. So we have to also think about that and remember that.
That's perfect. That's a perfect reminder.
If you had the opportunity to sit down and have a 1-hour conversation with one woman, any woman in the world, who would it be and why?
any woman in the world would probably, oh, you didn't add living or dead.
Oh, that's a given. Living or dead, it doesn't matter.
Okay. It would be my mommy. My mother passed when I was 13.
Oh, wow.
After a 6-year battle with the effects from breast cancer.
Okay.
So in those days, they didn't have a lot of resources, and they didn't know a lot of details about what they needed to do or not needed to do. And so there were a lot of things, because she got sick when I was 7 and passed when I was 13. And in those years in between, she was working really hard just to stay alive. So I didn't get to ask her a lot of questions that I would have wanted to as a daughter.
Mm-hmm.
You know, how she and my dad met, and how that made her feel, or all of those kinds of things. And I talk to my mom all the time because she's a part of my life. She helped me put this show together, and she's just with me all the time.
Yeah.
But there are things that I didn't get a chance to ask her in the physical life that I would love to just sit down and have a talk with my mom.
That's beautiful. They lose a parent at that young age. I mean, I just lost my father in October, and it doesn't matter what age you are. I mean, of course, being a child, it'd be a lot harder to deal with, but I don't think it gets any easier. When, like me losing my father in October, it crushed me. It's horrible, and it's hard to deal with. So I can't even imagine as a child to lose your parent, how that must have felt, and how the hell do you cope with that? Like, it's soul crushing. That's your mom.
Yeah. And it is a difficult thing because there's such a connection for mothers.
Yes.
Mothers. And like you said, with your dad, when you were able to be with him for so long in your life, that's really, through your adult life, is to have somebody that has always been there, who's always known who you are, and supported you and things like that. Not everybody's parent supports them in the way they like to be supported, but when you've had somebody around for such a long time, it is a difficult thing. It's like
two ends of the spectrum, right? When you're a kid, you haven't had a lot of time with your parent, but you need that time with your parent. And when you're an adult and you've had all this time with your parent, and then it's like, and they're gone. It's the parallels there. You know, it's a tough thing no matter where you are in your life. But as a child, I honestly, I can't even imagine, because and especially for mothers and daughters, mothers are nurturing. That's who they are and what they do. And to not have that as a child, I can't fathom it.
Yeah. And what was interesting for me was to recognize that as a child at 13. The first year my mom was gone, the first Christmas, my dad bought me for Christmas a giant panda and 3 boxes of stationery. That's what I got for Christmas when I was 13. And I opened it and thought, okay. So my first thought at that point in time was, so now I know Mom bought all the presents.
Yeah.
And then my second thought was, if I'm going to want decent presents after this point, I'm going to have to tell him what I want. It was hysterical in my mind, because I am a logical person.
Yeah.
So it was, okay, so let's analyze the situation. What does this mean now? What we're going to have to do. This is how we're going to have to reorganize.
Things are going to have to change. Sonia, if you could go back and give your younger self one piece of advice, what would that piece of advice be?
I would have to indicate that anything is possible, and you have to stay in that anything is possible. You have to stay there. You have to live in that, and you have to truly let yourself believe it. So that's probably the piece of advice that I would give her.
Very wise.
And I'm pausing because I'm going, how can I do that? How can I make it stick? How can I? Yeah. I really want you to hear this, baby.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. lastly, if you were to deliver your last 30-second speech to the world, like your tribe, your people, your corner of the world, what would that last 30 seconds sound like? What would you say? What words of wisdom would you impart unto them?
I think it would be the same thing, that anything is possible, and it's possible without hurting or harming anybody else. And if you figure that out, it'll be magical.
Love it. Beautifully said. What a great way to end the interview. Sonia, thank you so very much for taking the time to be here with me today and share and tell us about your story and your journey. I appreciate you so much for taking the time to be here and share with me today. It's been an honor to sit down and chat with you, and an absolutely beautiful conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate the time. I appreciate the ability to just have a meaningful conversation with you.
I appreciate you. Once again, my name is Brad Walsh, host of your Empowerography Podcast. Today, my guest has been Sonia Jackson. She is an actress, writer, producer, and the founder and CEO of Visions of Possibilities. Thanks so much, Sonia. I hope you have an amazing day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much for listening to this podcast. If you haven't yet, please be sure to subscribe, rate, review, and share with all your friends. You can find me at visuphoria.ca and follow me on Instagram at Empowerography Podcast and on Facebook at Empowerography. Please join me next time for another inspirational story from yet another amazing woman.